Hey y'all, thanks for joining me for another What's for Dinner. To start off the week, I'm making the best Instant Pot chicken noodle soup. I recently made this for a family that had been sick and was in quarantine, and I have been craving it ever since. It's going to make your whole house smell amazing. So the first thing I do is I turn my pot onto the saute function. I add in a few tablespoons of olive oil and I let that get really hot before I add in my chicken. I am using bone-in chicken thighs. I do tear the skin off. I have found that chicken thighs works the best for this soup. I feel like it gives it the most flavor. I did place those seasoned side down, and then I'm just seasoning the other side the same exact way with just some salt, pepper, onion, and garlic powder, but of course feel free to use your favorite seasonings here. Then I'm just going to cook each side for about 3 minutes. I'm not looking to fully cook it. I'm just trying to develop that nice color on them and kind of lock in the flavor and seal in those juices. But once I have done that, I'm just going to remove it to a separate plate. And while that was cooking, I did chop up my veggies, and that's what I'm going to add in now. I added in about 3 large carrots that I had peeled and sliced, and then I'd say about 3 to 4 stalks of celery. And I'm just going to give those a quick season of salt and pepper. And since I don't like to cook with real onion, I did throw in just a little bit of onion powder, and I'm just going to saute that around for about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to add in a big spoonful of minced garlic, let that go for an additional 30 minutes or so. And I'm just going to add in a little bit of chicken broth to kind of deglaze the bottom of that pot. And I'm just going to make sure I scrape up all those flavorful bits. And then I'm going to throw back in that chicken and all of the juices that kind of accumulated on that plate. And then I am going to fill this up with chicken broth. You will need a total of 6 cups. And then I like to add in just a little bit of this Better Than Bouillon chicken paste just to give it some extra flavor. If you can't find this or if you don't have it on hand, you could use some chicken bouillon cubes as well. And then lastly, I'm just going to throw in a couple of bay leaves. Then I'm going to pop my top on and make sure it's set in the sealing position, and I set my timer for 8 minutes. Once that timer was up, I did a quick release and remove that lid. And I'm just going to get in there with my tongs, and I am going to remove my chicken to a separate plate. Yes, that is a clean plate. That's not the same one that I had the raw chicken on. I'm really careful when it comes to cross-contamination. But I'm just going to turn my pot back on to saute to get that chicken broth up to a boil. And then I'm going to throw in my egg noodles. And these take just a few minutes to cook up. You definitely want to make sure you don't overcook them or they'll just be mushy and not good at all. Then I'm just going to take my tongs and kind of tear the chicken off from the bones. This is my least favorite part of this whole process because the chicken's super hot, of course. But once I get that finished, I just toss it back on into that pot. And then I am going to add in more black pepper because if you've been with me for a while now, y'all know I love it. And then I add in a ton of dried parsley as well. Just give that a final stir. Make sure that you remove those bay leaves, and it is finished. Does that not just look so perfect? So this was actually Riley's first day of school, and I asked her what she wanted me to make for her special dinner, and this is what she picked out. And of course I wasn't complaining. We all love this meal. I did serve it with a side of grilled cheese, and even though we are like soup lovers year round, this is perfect for fall time. And it does make a ton. So here it is the next day. We definitely eat leftovers. We don't waste food around here. There's no way I was going to cook a whole nother meal when I had all this in the fridge, so I just heated that up. We were all happy. And then the next day, so I found these really big tortillas at the dollar store of all places. I had never seen them in stores before, so I had to pick them up, and I thought that like meatless burritos sounded good. Even though I'm a meat eater, sometimes I just get tired of eating meat like every day. I don't know if I'm alone on that, but anyways, so I'm going to be making my homemade Mexican rice. It's the same recipe that I always follow, and since it's been a while that I talked about it, I'm going to go ahead and kind of take you step by step. So I start by heating up 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and then I add in 1 cup of long grain white rice. I've recently started rinsing the rice first, and it's made such a huge difference in the texture. I like it way better. But I just toast that up for several minutes, and then I add in 2 cups of warm water, a can of tomato sauce, 8 ounces, a spoonful of minced garlic, 1 teaspoon of chili powder, and 2 teaspoons of tomato bouillon powder. I recently uploaded a TikTok of this same exact recipe, and so many people cannot believe I put chili powder in my Mexican rice, but that's the only way I've ever tried it, and we really like it. But yeah, I just let that come back up to a boil. Then I pop a top on, turn it down to a simmer, and I let it cook for 20 minutes. Do not open the lid, do not stir it during those 20 minutes. But once the time is up, I fluff it up, and then I'm going to cut the heat off, pop my lid back on, and I'm going to let it set for an additional 10 minutes. All of this helps with the texture in the end, so don't skip those steps. But yeah, here it is once it is all done. I highly recommend it. Like I said, it's been a staple in my house for years now. We love it every single time. And then I also decided to kind of do my own refried beans. I started by melting about a tablespoon of butter. I added in some minced garlic, and then I'm going to add in 2 cans of these pinto beans, juice and all. You could, of course, like make your own beans, starting with the dry beans. You could even do like your leftover soup beans, just whatever floats your boat. And then I added in about a half a package of taco seasoning. I stirred that in, and I let that simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes, I'd say. And then I pulled out my potato masher, and I just started mashing up most of those beans. I left it a little bit chunky, but they turned out really good. I was pretty impressed. But now I'm just going to assemble the burrito.
I'm falling from the sky. I'm landing on the cloud. You kissed me like a star, and I start to fly over the clouds. Between the feet of the sea, I come down from the clouds. Instead, I was raised to never be able.
These turned out bomb, like so much better than what I anticipated. Even my husband, who is the type of person that feels like he has to have meat at every single meal, said that he would love to have this again. So that was definitely a win. I did serve it with a side of homemade salsa to dip it in, and it wasn't the greatest salsa. This was my first time using this recipe. Like it was okay. I wouldn't be proud to serve it to anyone. So yeah, I wouldn't make it again. These are the ingredients that I used. Back there in that tin is some sugar. I just pulsed it all up in a food processor. I know a lot of y'all will say it's missing the onion, but I cannot do onions. But yeah, if any of y'all have a good salsa recipe, please share. I would be so appreciative. But yeah, moving on to the next day, I'm doing some beef tips in the crock pot. So I'm just adding in 2 packages. It was cheaper to do the 2 individual packages versus like the family pack, which is usually not the case, but that's just kind of how it worked out. So anyways, now I'm going to mix up the gravy. I'm using a packet of brown gravy mix, a package of the dry onion soup mix, which is brave for me, and then a can of cream of celery. The recipe actually calls for cream of mushroom, but don't like that, so that's what I substituted. And I'm just pouring that all into this little bowl. There was some water in the bottom of that. And if you're new here, anytime I follow a recipe, it will be down below in my description box if I'm talking too fast and if you want the exact measurements. But yeah, I just mix that up with my whisk, and I'm going to pour that all over my meat, and then I'm going to pop my lid on, and I cooked mine on low for 6 hours. And here it is after it is fully cooked. I turn my crock pot off at this point, pop that lid back on, and I let it sit for about 20 to 25 minutes, I'd say, before I served it, just so I could prepare the sides, and that kind of helped thicken up the gravy. But I tried these new cornbread swirls by Pillsbury for the first time. I had 0 expectations for those, but they surprisingly turned out really good. I would definitely buy them again. And I just served those beef tips over some mashed potatoes, and I have a side of peas. So the next day, I used up those leftover beef tips, but I turned it into something I kind of thought up in my head real quick, and that was some mini like beef pot pies. So I literally just took a can of mixed veggies, drained off the liquid, and stirred it on into that. I did have that on warm, kind of heating up. And then I got these cute little Pioneer Woman pie dishes. I was looking for the disposable ones and couldn't find them, so I'm happy with my purchase though. Then I'm using some of this pie crust. I just rolled it out onto a piece of parchment paper, and I took one of those little pie plates and put it down, and I'm going to take my knife and kind of cut a circle around it. As you can imagine, you're not going to be able to fit like 4 perfect circles on one piece of that dough. So I had some really funky looking pieces. This is the best one that I'm showing you right now. That one turned out the best. But the others were kind of pitiful looking, as you can see, but it does not matter. We call that rustic around here. So this is kind of how I made it work. You are going to need a piece for the bottom, of course, and then a piece for the top. So you'll need 8 pieces total. So I just kind of took all those leftover triangle pieces and formed it into a bottom crust, and I promise nobody is going to know. So I'm just going to take a few scoops of that mixture and pour that on in, and then I'm going to place it with a little dough circle on the top, and then I'm going to cut an X on top of all of those to kind of let it help vent. You don't want it to explode, and I did put them on a cookie sheet in case anything spilled over, and it did, so I'm glad I did that. But now I'm just taking a beaten egg and I'm just brushing that over the top. This is going to help it get golden brown. And I'm going to pop that in my oven at 350 degrees for 30 to 35 minutes. And here is what they look like when they first come out. Like, how cute. Everything mini is just so much cuter. I honestly wasn't looking forward to this because I'm more of like a chicken person over beef most of the time. But these were like incredible. I was so impressed. And it was minimal effort, as you guys saw. So yeah, highly recommend those. And I just served it with a side of fresh peaches that my aunt gave me, and I topped them with some whipped cream, and it was just the best dinner and something different. And to end the week, we ended it with Longhorn Steakhouse with some of the greatest friends a girl could ask for. But that is going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.